This
ready.
conference will now be recorded.
Showtime.
All right. Everyone, welcome to the December 15th South Whitehall Township Planning Commission meeting. Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Greg, would you like to do the roll call?
Yes, I would. Trevor Dombach.
Here, virtually.
Tim Dugan.
Here.
Andrew Flagg.
Here.
Sorry, virtually here.
There we go. Brian Height.
Here. In person.
Diane Kelly.
Here, virtually.
Mark Luth.
Here.
And David Wilson.
Here, virtually.
We have 7 members present. That is sufficient for a quorum.
Greg, would you like to go over the meeting rules?
Yes, indeed. And these meeting rules are especially important tonight as we have a very strong remote contingent. So here we go. For an orderly meeting wherein all attendees may be able to fully participate, we ask that you adhere to the following rules. Please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid background noise that may cause interference in the meeting and make it difficult for others to hear. Staff may mute the microphones of remote attendees if needed. Public questions and comments will be taken at periodic intervals throughout the agenda. We will start with no time limits, but the Planning Commission Chairman may impose a time limitation if there are many questions or if the meeting is running short on time. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized and then move to the podium when directed and state your name and address and your comment or question. Please turn on the podium microphone before speaking and off when done. And I want to stress to the Planning Commission members and staff who are here present tonight, please remember to turn your microphones on before you speak and off after you speak, because the microphones are the only way that the remote people can hear us. For remote attendees, the chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address in the chat box, which is a speech balloon icon in the upper right hand of your screen, I believe. When you are recognized and so directed, please unmute your microphone and state your comment or question. Mute your microphone when done. For those who are accessing the meeting by phone only, staff will periodically ask for caller comments and unmute any callers. Callers must identify their name and address prior to making a comment. Your cooperation and adherence to these rules will ensure an orderly and respectful meeting. Thank you.
All right. We're on agenda item number 3, review and approval of the November 17th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments or edits?
I have one comment. This indicates that Jennifer Alderfer was present for this meeting. That is not the case. It was Joe Zader.
This is Diane Kelly. I had just a couple of on page 4 at the very top of the page. It says Mrs. Kelly inquired as to the worst case scenario. That was for underparked cars at shopping centers. So if we could just add for reference. And at the very end of the meeting minutes, the discussion was on page 8. It says Mr. Manhart suggested the approval of MPDES permit be added. He also went on to say that we would use this as a starting point and come back with a simpler version. That was in reference to the stormwater discussion we had.
All right. Any other comments? Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Brian Height.
I'll second
said-
Brian Kelly.
All right. Since we have virtual and in person, we'll do a roll call.
Trevor Dombach,
Aye.
Tim Dugan,
Oh,
Aye.
Andrew Flagg,
Aye.
Brian Height,
Aye.
Diane Kelly,
Aye.
Mark Luth, David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, we're on agenda item number 4, comp plan review. Greg, would you like to go over that? We had a pretty productive meeting on Tuesday. Looks like we may be able to move things forward a little bit.
and this is Chris Stroller here in person. I just wanted to make a couple comments, just an update of where we are. So as David mentioned, we had our final workshop meeting this past Tuesday. We reviewed the final implementation items. We've updated the design and layout that we mentioned on Tuesday, and we're making minor additions, just some based off of some of the board comments. We are working on the Comprehensive Plan 101 kind of introductory sheet that we had talked about to provide more information to the public during the public review of this plan. I want to just note here what we're really looking to do now is we would like to request the Planning Commission consider formally releasing the plan for the required 45-day public review period. And this review period is for adjacent municipalities, the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, Parkland School District. And I just have a timeline here as an example. If we are looking at opening up the review period this evening, or tomorrow, I should say, after 45 days, that puts us at the end of January. Due to the schedules in January and February, we are actually looking at following that 45-day period, we would not have a planning commission meeting until February 16th, which is after both of the potentially scheduled Board of Commissioners meetings for the month of February. So if the Planning Commission wishes to actually request the board to adopt this plan, it wouldn't be until March. And that's if we are looking at releasing it relatively soon. So again, this is really just the formal release so that we can send it out to our neighboring municipalities and LVPC and the school district. I know there was a lot of concern about having some information available to the public. We can still work on a lot of that, and we can continue to have public outreach following that 45 days. But we are hoping to get the clock started so that we can actually get it out to the municipalities.
Then in terms of the executive summary and items we discussed on Tuesday, those could be added during the public comment. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And we intend to get out the Comprehensive Plan 101 sheet to the board and the Planning Commission next week. I believe we also have Hannah Clark, our consultant from Michael Baker. I don't know if Hannah, if you're on, if you want to weigh in at all on the essentially what we can still do during the public comment period as we get information from the public and and make adjustments through that timeline.
Of course. Good evening, everyone. And I can speak a bit just to the MCP or MPC, excuse me, and how that guides the adoption process. So during the public comment period, if the Planning Commission recommends the draft for public comment this evening, it will open up the formal 45-day period, and that will also can correspond with the public comment period. And if the only governance that the MPC provides when it comes to how the plan, if it is necessary to make updates or changes, is if those are considered to be substantive. And so the addition of an executive summary would not necessarily fall in that area for the MPC. Similarly, a lot of the different types of potential text edits, as well as updates to the future land use map, also are things that are typically addressed during the public comment period, and again, would not be considered substantive. That is ultimately the decision of the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners if they feel that one of the updates or suggested changes goes beyond and feels like a substantive update, but there is flexibility as long as when we release the public comment draft, you will have the draft mark on the pages. And then also when the draft was released. So there's a clear timeline as to what version folks are reviewing. Chris and anyone else, any of the commissioners, please let me know what additional information I can provide.
Thank you, Hannah. I'll add to that. You can see that we do have several Board of Commissioners meetings and a Planning Commission meeting during that public comment period, which as we receive public comment through the online forums in the Township building here, we will continuously update the boards during those meetings and make adjustments as necessary to any additional outreach we might need to do. We are still looking at having a public forum at the end of January here in the Township building, and we'll be putting together information on that and sending it out to the boards.
Great. So yeah, I guess it's up to us, fellow Planning Commission members. Do we have any thoughts?
And I'll add to that, if it's of the wish of the commission to set a date that you wish to release it. If you, for example, if you'd like to say we would like to release the plan next week or a date like that, and we can send out any information beforehand. It's just a matter of making sure that we can know what the commission wants to do now before, say, the next meeting on January 19th.
And this is Diane Kelly. I'm sorry. This is Diane Kelly. I'm personally very comfortable releasing the plan. We had a very productive workshop on Tuesday, and I think we all were at a good place by the end of the meeting to go ahead and release it. So that would be my comment.
Yeah, I agree. It was summed up pretty well on Tuesday in terms of we've had a lot of public input over numerous months, a lot of back and forth, and I think we're at a place now where we can release it and keep moving forward with completing this comp plan.
This is Brian. I agree. I think we've taken it about as far as we can, and now that if we release it to public comment, then at least we have a new stage and we can inform the public that this is what it's going to be or potentially be, and reinvigorate our community again. So those are my thoughts.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience, virtually or in person, that would like to provide any feedback? All right, well, I think we can make a motion. Would someone like to make a motion?
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to,
Go ahead, Brian.
I'll make the motion to release it for public comment starting tomorrow.
I second.
All right, Greg, could you do a roll call?
Trevor Dombach,
Aye.
Tim Dugan,
Aye.
Andrew Flagg,
Aye.
Brian Height,
Aye.
Diane Kelly,
Aye.
Mark Luth,
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, I'm looking forward to that, moving along and seeing if we get more feedback from everyone. Now we're on agenda item number 5, subdivision review. The first project on the agenda is 1881 Penn's Crossing and 3768 Huckleberry Road, lot line adjustment. Greg, would you like to do the staff presentation?
Absolutely. This is an application to adjust the lot line between 1881 Penn's Crossing and 3768 Huckleberry Road. The plan proposes to transfer 63,729 square feet, or approximately 1.4630 acres, of property from 3768 Huckleberry Road to 1881 Penn's Crossing. 1881's Penn's Crossing is zoned low-density residential R2. 3768 Huckleberry Road is zoned rural residential and agriculture RR. Matthew and Ashley Pooker are the owners of both properties and the applicants. The Community Development Department recommends that the Planning Commission recommend preliminary final plan approval to the Board of Commissioners, subject to the applicant complying with the following conditions. 1, if deemed to be necessary, the applicant shall execute subdivision improvement, security, maintenance, and indemnification agreements acceptable to the township and its solicitor, that sufficient security in a form acceptable to the township be posted, that such security shall be available for draws presentations no further than 60 miles from the township's office, and evidence of the insurance coverage in an amount satisfactory to the township in its sole discretion shall be provided prior to the plan being recorded. 2, that the applicant shall address to the satisfaction of township engineer the comments of Mr. Anthony Talarita as contained in his review dated December 9, 2022. 3, that the applicant shall address to the satisfaction of Community Development Department the comments of Mr. Greg Adams as contained in his review dated December 9, 2022. 4, if deemed to be necessary, the applicant shall obtain a review from the LVPC prior to the plan being presented to the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners. 5, that the applicant shall comply with the November 21, 2022 recommendation of the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission. 6, that the applicant shall dedicate additional right-of-way for Huckleberry Road to achieve the ultimate right-of-way of an arterial road. The dedication shall occur prior to the plan being recorded. The dedication shall be by deed of dedication in the form acceptable to township solicitor, and that an opinion of record title shall be prepared by the applicant's counsel indicating that the dedication is free and clear of liens and encumbrances that would affect the township's use of said property. The applicant shall furnish to the township solicitor a description of the dedication that has been approved by the township engineer and a copy of the current deed for the property showing the current ownership and recording information. 7, that the applicant shall reconcile all open invoices for township engineering and legal services prior to the plan being recorded. And 8, the plans are to be revised and deemed to be clean prior to them being presented to the Board of Commissioners. The Planning Commission soft deadline to act on the plan is January 16th, 2023. The Board of Commissioners' hard deadline to act on the plan is February 15th, 2023.
Right, if the applicant or a representative for the applicant is present, please come to the podium and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Drew Bertolazzi with Gilmore and Associates. I'm representing the applicants, Mr. Matthew Pucker and Miss Ashley Pucker. And this for 1881 Penn's Crossing, 3768 Huckleberry Road. we're asking for Planning Commission's recommendation for preliminary final approval for the lot line adjustment, and we will comply with the requirements laid out by the Planning Commission. We responded to Anthony Talarida, the municipal engineer's letter, and we're requesting two deferrals, one related to providing frontage improvements along Huckleberry Road, and the other for providing the existing features within 400 feet of the tract on the plan. So we're asking for the recommendation from the Planning Commission pending resolution of these comments with the township engineer.
Thank you, Drew. Question I have is, can you just give a little background for the reasoning of the lot line adjustment? Why they want to move forward with this lot line adjustment?
Sure. I know that Matt Pucker is in the audience, so I might defer to him on the specifics of this lot line adjustment.
Matt, there's a button on that microphone if you could turn it on.
Sure. Am I good? All right, yeah, so the general idea is that I'm going to be building my home on the 1881 Pence Crossing, and due to the restrictions noted on the current NPDS, I was looking to obviously increase pervious area so I can have a larger impervious. That's number one. Number two, it's a great view up there, and I like to have control of what's in front of me moving forward. That's really the two main reasons why.
So do you plan on using the Huckleberry lot for a little of your stormwater control?
Working through that now,
Okay.
possibly, yes.
Fine. I have no questions.
It is a great view up there. Kind of jealous.
It is. Very lucky.
All right. Are there any further questions from the Planning Commission?
I have no questions.
Okay. Do we want to discuss the, looks like there's two deferrals being requested, frontage improvements and then showing the existing features within 400 feet. Tony, in terms of showing existing features within 400 feet of the property, do you have any engineering objections or any comments?
No, not at this time, as it's a lot line adjustment. Everything that's necessary to be shown on the plan is included. Adjacent properties would not do anything to enhance the plan.
Okay. All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
Excuse me,
regarding
Mr.
that?
Chairman. I think we should check for courtesy of the floor.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Anyone in the audience? Any comments or thoughts? All right.
I did have a follow-up, Dave. I did have a follow-up for the applicant. The existing buildings, are they going to remain that are on 3768 Huckleberry?
Yes, those are all to remain.
Okay, thanks.
I'll make a motion to grant the deferrals if there's no questions from any of the online folks.
Well, I don't think we discussed the frontage improvements yet. My understanding is this isn't a land development, it's just a lot line adjustment, so it could be deferred, and if land development is proposed in the future, we could call in that deferral. Is that
Could I just have a clarification here? The LaSaldo requirement to show the existing features within 400 feet of the plan, I'm presuming that's a waiver and not a deferral.
waiver? Yeah, a waiver.
Yes, that's correct.
And I'll make a motion to grant the waiver for the 400-foot existing features requirement, and I'll make a motion to grant the deferral and any improvements to the frontage on Huckleberry.
This is Brian. I'll make it second.
Since
All right.
there's two
Greg.
motions on the,
Do one first.
I'll make the second motion.
Well, we're going to do one, the waiver first, then the deferral second.
I had a clarification here for the frontage improvements. I did note that one of the conditions of approval is the compliance with the November 21st, 2022 recommendation of the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission. The Shade Tree Commission would like 2 trees planted as part of the frontage improvements. If you choose to grant the deferral, then that condition of approval will have to be struck. So I'm just throwing that out there.
I hate to make you walk up to the podium. You can probably answer yes, and I will repeat your answer. Do you have any problem planting the 2 trees? Okay. The owner of the parcel says he has no problem planting 2 trees. So I will revise the, I guess we'll go one at a time here. Make a motion for the waiver for the 400-foot offsite locations.
And I'll second.
Roll call, Greg?
Trevor Dombach,
Aye.
Tim Dugan,
Aye.
Andrew Flagg,
Aye.
Brian Height,
Aye.
Diane Kelly,
Aye.
Mark Luth,
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
And we'll make a motion to defer roadside improvements to Huckleberry with the exception of 2 trees per the comments from the Shade Tree Commission.
I'll make a second.
Roll call, Greg?
Trevor Dombach,
Aye.
Tim Dugan,
Aye.
Andrew Flagg,
Aye.
Brian Height,
Aye.
Diane Kelly,
Aye.
Mark Luth,
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. And do we need to make a motion for the lot line adjustment?
Make a motion to grant the conditional approval on the lot line adjustment per the Community Development Department recommendations as stated.
I'll make a second.
All right. Greg, could you do the roll call?
Trevor Dombach,
Aye.
Tim Dugan,
Aye.
Andrew Flagg,
Aye.
Brian Height,
Aye.
Diane Kelly,
Aye.
Mark Luth,
Aye.
and David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right.
Thank you.
Good luck with your lot line adjustment. All right. We're on agenda item B, 1429 Eck Road Outdoor Storage. Mr. Adams.
Mr. Chairman, before we begin, I will just note that I will be stepping down from the dais because I believe Attorney DeVito is remote with us tonight and will be handling this project to the extent there's any legal questions.
All right.
Attorney
Mr.
DeVito,
Chairman,
if you could-
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am here.
Okay, great. All right. So this is 1429 Eck Road Outdoor Storage. Mr. Adams, would you like to do the staff presentation?
Absolutely. This is an application to develop the property located at 1429 Eck Road. The plan proposes to construct an 87-space parking area with a guard shack on approximately 5.11 acre parcel. The property is to be served by public water and public sewer and is zoned Industrial Commercial 1 Special Height Limitation IC1. Triple Net Investments CI LLC is the equitable owner and applicant. This is a sketch plan. Therefore, the department recommends that the applicant utilize the comments of the reviewing agencies and those of the Planning Commission to assist in the preparation of the preliminary plans. There are no deadline dates applicable for sketch plans. Thank you.
All right, if the applicant or applicant's representatives are present, if you could introduce yourself and provide your presentation, it would be appreciated.
Good evening, Marty Smith with Paney and Lentz Engineering, representing the applicant.
And Eric Schock from Fitzpatrick. Turn this over to Marty at some point, but just a little bit of background. We needed special exception relief and zoning relief to keep parking in reserve. We've gotten that. We're awaiting the decision of the written decision from the zoning hearing board solicitor. We had submitted, and I think it's actually in your packet. Marty had included a list of the changes he had made to the plan based upon the comments from the Planning Commission the last time Marty was here, actually with my partner Tim Charlesworth. I wasn't personally here. In speaking with,
And we really appreciate how you actually listened. So I just want to make that comment.
Thank you, Mr. Height. In speaking with Mr. Adams and Mr. Manhart, the suggestion was, even though we had hoped to get here before the special exception, we went forward, we got the relief, but the thought was to come back one more time with the new plan with those changes, because as Mr. Adams said, the next step will be for Marty to file the actual land development plans. So if there was any last round of comments that he needs to discuss so that he can possibly incorporate those, we're here for kind of that last shot before we go to the next step. Correct, Marty?
That's right. Yep. And as Eric mentioned, we tried to address all the comments from the previous township engineer review letter, your comments from the September meeting when we were before you previously, as well as concerns that were brought up from public comments at that time.
Yeah, one of the significant ones, as you saw, is the driveway location.
That's correct.
You know, that was shifted, and actually, I believe the adjacent property owner was at the zoning hearing and was not in opposition and was grateful that he had been heard. Correct?
That's right. Yeah, and the zoning hearing board put some, had some conditions on our approval, including all the buffering along that property line.
Yeah, which we intend
to. It's a much better layout. Fluid, very nice. You listened to what we said, and you got more work to do before you get back to us with the preliminary plans.
Yeah, we'll work on coordinating with the township geotechnical engineer, do our actual stormwater testing out there, get into the stormwater design.
Very nice. That change of the entrance makes all the difference in your traffic movement and flow in the interior.
Yeah, it works better. Yeah, I have stacking for 3 full tractor trailers off the road prior to the guardhouse.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern, is queuing and having a lock gate or some sort of.
I mean, even if it's open and they're slowing down, the thought to somebody, there's room for 3 trucks.
And I think this makes the project long-term more sustainable. It's going to be attractive to a tenant, and so I think it's a win.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you back here.
All right. Anybody online? Online? Anybody?
Is there anyone online that would have any comments?
No.
No?
All right.
All right. Well, anyone?
Was there anybody in the audience?
Sounds like we got it right the first time after we were here. That's a good thing.
And that's one of the benefits of coming in with a sketch plan, rather than spending a lot of engineering money and then having to. I know engineers do not like to erase things they've done. So
it's easier
that's
now
one of the
with
benefits of having a sketch
AutoCAD,
plan. So we appreciate
like
it.
showing their hand.
We'll see. We'll see you next year with
the process worked the way it should, right? All right. Hey, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're on agenda item 6.
Just want
Parkland
to say
School
thank you to
District.
I'm sorry, I was going to say thank you to Attorney DeVito for sitting in as alternate township solicitor.
Yes.
And thank you to the board for your consideration this evening. Please get home safely, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, agenda item C, Parkland School District, new operations center. Mr. Adams, would you like to do the staff presentation?
Yes, indeed. This is an application to further develop the property located at 2619 Stadium Drive. The plan proposes to raise the existing structure and construct a two-story, 39,295 square foot building, 90 parking spaces, and associated stormwater management facilities on the 8.70 acre parcel. The property is served by public water and is zoned rural residential RR2. Parkland School District is the owner and applicant. The Community Development Department recommends that the Planning Commission take the plan under advisement to afford the applicant the time necessary to address the reviewing agency's comments. Our recommendation is contingent upon the applicant granting the township a waiver from the time frame in which to act upon the plan. The Planning Commission's soft deadline to act on the plan is January 16th, 2023. The Board of Commissioners' hard deadline to act on the plan is February 15th, 2023.
Thanks, Greg. Scott McMacken with Cowan Associates, the engineer for the project. We do have representatives of the school district and MKSD, the architect, if there's questions as we go through the discussion. First, Greg, we have no problem granting the extension for time. I can get you a letter to that effect tomorrow or So the project is the construction of a new operations center over on Stadium Road, which is right next to Orfield Middle School. We were before the Planning Commission a couple of months ago with the sketch plan, if you recall, and we had some good discussion about the project. It's going to be a two-story building. The top floor will be some administrative offices, and then the lower floor will be storage mainly for the district and consolidating a lot of their storage and operations uses. Their existing Choxville building that's being used will be closed down, and a lot of those operations will be consolidated at this site. So we did get a review letter from your engineer. The vast majority of these comments are will complies. There are a few comments that I guess warrant some discussion as we move forward. And I think, as Greg mentioned, they're not recommending approval tonight. We won't be asking for approval tonight. We're hoping to get some feedback and some comments on some of the waiver requests. And would like to make the modifications and possibly come back in February with a preliminary and final request from you. That being said, I think going to Tony's letter, your township engineer's review, the first comment that I just wanted to point out under stormwater management on page 2, there's a comment about we're proposing a detention basin down near the southern end of the site, which on the plan view that you're looking at is on the left of the site. And as part of that, we are proposing an outlet structure and pipe coming out of that basin, which right now is proposed to discharge right above Lime Kiln Road. Right above there's a residential driveway. Yeah, that's a better view of it. So right there on the left-hand side, you can kind of see there's a head wall or an end wall there that is proposing to discharge the stormwater coming down from the site onto Lime Kiln Road. Tony's concerned about, even though the water is kind of discharging there now, would like to take that and possibly extend that out into the road and down a little bit further to the west, probably about 150, 200 feet. Down the road, there's a series of inlets that exist in the road. So instead of having the water kind of coming out on the surface from the detention basin and potentially causing, drainage issues and icing and things of that nature, he would like us to kind of come out and pull that outlet pipe a little bit further down, and we have no problem doing that. So we'll be working with Tony to come up with a design, and I think we're probably going to have to come across the road and down the southern side of the road. There's a little bit more room there to work, so we will be taking care of that. There's a comment on page 4 under item D, traffic. Item number 4 of that comment is a comment about Limekiln Road from 309, which is above to the east, or a little bit above where we're showing on the plan here. That's noted that it's no truck traffic, and there was a comment in here about what we want to do about that being it's posted no truck traffic except local deliveries. Which I understand, given the nature of Limekiln Road, as you go a little bit further to the west, gets pretty narrow, and then there's a narrow bridge that goes underneath the turnpike that's really, just enough to get two narrow lanes through it. So I just wanted to clarify, this is going to be the operations center, but in terms of truck usage, truck traffic, it's going to be very minimal. Talk with the school district. They anticipate probably 2 tractor trailers a week for food service. So, one every, 3 days or so for food service, and then maybe 1 tractor trailer a week for other deliveries, paper, or, other associated deliveries for the school district. And then, maybe, your normal FedEx deliveries and things of that nature. So, we feel that, the use that we're proposing could still fall under except the local delivery classification of that limitation. In fact, there are trucks that occasionally go up and service, the middle school now. So we really don't expect much more of a, truck usage for this development. But just wanted to bring that up to the Planning Commission to see if there were any concerns or issues as far as that goes, to see if, again, as we're further developing this plan, to come back to you in a month or two, if there's any issues we need to look at in a little bit more detail.
Speaking of tractor trailers, does the school currently have fuel on? I see, it looks like they fuel up the school buses there or something. And is the delivery of that, if so, is the delivery by tractor trailer? Because it gives some sort of use that's already existing, and the increase wouldn't be that significant.
Yeah. So the bus garage and bus depot is up Stadium Road, up at the top of the hill there. And yes, they do get fuel delivery up there as well, in addition to the middle school. So, again, very, once a week, something like along those lines, which is kind of what we're expecting, for this use as well. Not a lot of truck traffic.
Are they coming in off of Orfield Road or up off of Limekiln, or wherever the driver determines they're coming in?
Yeah, I think wherever they're coming in, I think they certainly try to go out Limekiln because it's signalized.
You're getting deliveries already to the middle school across the street via tractor trailer somehow, some way, and the idea that might be coming in Limekiln. So between you and Tony, I'm sure you can figure out a way to allow some sort of delivery to your site. We keep some sort of status for the rest of Limekiln, but maybe from you out.
Right. Okay, great. We can work with Tony on that. At the last item, and again, this is more of a little detail. There was a comment about some of the parking. I know we talked last time during the sketch plan. Those center and the lower parking lot to the left of the building. In that center area, we have them kind of striped as red there. What the intent is, during the normal school day, I think there's 60, I can't remember exactly, 65 parking spaces proposed that are striped in that upper parking lot and around the perimeter of the lower parking lot. We anticipate no more than 35 to 40 of those parking spaces to be utilized during the normal school week. Those red parking spaces in the middle are intended to meet the zoning requirement, which is 78, but they're really mainly to be used for overflow parking for the stadium up the hill, during football games and things of that nature. We really don't anticipate them being utilized as full-time parking. So what we're proposing was to just stripe them as like a different color instead of the white, stripe them as yellow or something like that to kind of indicate. So there was a comment in there that we don't meet the parking requirement, which, we do. We have enough parking. We have 90 spaces on there shown. We just have to figure out with the township and your zoning officer how we kind of handle that issue. If we need to stripe them, we will, but we'll discuss that with your zoning officer. And really the last item I did want to discuss, it is embedded. I submitted a waiver request letter dated December 14th. The majority of those waiver requests are, kind of administrative items. They're the, same as the previous applicant, areas within 400 feet. There's a couple in there that are kind of technical related to stormwater management, which I can go into a little bit. But the one I know I wanted to talk about was and we talked about this again, a sketch plan about the frontage improvements. And on the current plan submission, we are showing full frontage improvements, curbing, widening, sidewalks along both frontages, along the entire frontage of Stadium Road. And then as you move to the south around the corner and down Lime Kiln Road as well. We would like to, some talking with some of the school district administration, we would like to ask for a deferral for that section below that, the lower driveway going into Orfield Middle School, which is kind of shown there on the plan heading up. So that section of sidewalk and coming around to Lime Kiln, because we just feel it's a safety issue. There's really no reason for the kids to go, or anybody to go down there. If you're familiar with the area, Lime Kiln it's very narrow. It heads down to that bridge, which doesn't have any shoulder on it. There's really nowhere to go currently. So we would just ask, we just don't want really kids to be invited to go down that way. We have no problem with a deferral. So if 10 years down the road that bridge gets widened under the turnpike and Lime Kiln Road gets widened and there's a need for sidewalk, we can certainly put it in at that point when it's a little bit safer to have folks down there. But that particular, I know we talked about that. I know it's not the policy of the township right now for deferral of these things, but we think it's kind of a unique case where we're putting sidewalk and we have no issue putting it, along the stadium, and we want that because there's going to be folks parking down here for football games and such. But that lower section we would be requesting the deferral from.
The comment that I have on that, I know it was brought up in the previous time that the district and you were here. The school district property extends across the road. There is a historical use of that property by the school district, staff, students, and the public. I don't know if it's posted as no trespassing now currently or not. And even though it may not be currently occurring, I do occasionally see vehicles parked there where people will go and use that property.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, as far as I understand it, the district's property extends all the way down to the Jordan Creek. And there certainly would be opportunities for potential future connections or use of the school district and students and staff in that avenue.
Yeah, currently there is no use of the property to the south of Lime Kiln. I think in the sketch plan there was some old sign there about an environmental zone or something like that. That was the school district took that out. There's not been any use of that for years as far as I know, and they really don't want to invite anybody going down there currently. Now again, if that changes, and everything, as you can see, we have it designed currently. We have it designed, the stormwater management is designed to accommodate it. Everything is there. We're not planning on changing any of that. So it really would be a true deferral where everything will be there. If it's ever needed in the future, it can literally just be installed tomorrow type of thing. So it's, everything's going to be designed for it. But we just don't want to have that access there.
So it would be engineered. We've run into issues recently of trying to call in deferrals, and then we actually go out there and it's like really impossible to make that connection. So
right.
My concern is I see the value in that, especially the way Lime Kiln is at the Turnpike. But the Turnpike is widening, although there are no current plans to go north of Lehigh Valley, but you never know.
Right.
The tunnel going into Carbon County has a lot to say with the widening. That's a big
project.
Yeah. So I remember when it was just one tunnel. That was fun on holiday weekends. But I would also see a potential, like let's say you build all the rest of the sidewalk to the north, and then you start seeing people walking down there for whatever reason. I could see it being a safety issue as well. So as long as it's engineered, I personally wouldn't have a problem with it, as long as it's something that's like almost shovel ready. Like if we really needed it and the school district agreed, or maybe not agree, but the township deems it necessary.
Yeah, that was the plan. That was the plan. Yeah, we have everything in the stormwater management as, that's going to be a little bypass area. That's all been factored into the calculations. Yes.
Okay.
But other than that, I can go through the other waivers if you'd like. They're fairly minor and technical, but the rest of the comments in these letters from township staff and from Tony and your geologist, they're all, as far as we're concerned, they're all will complies and can be addressed with another resubmission to the township.
Is there going to be any kind of streetlights or pedestrian? I think they're there now along.
There's nothing there now. There's a couple of utility poles coming from Lime Kiln serving the existing buildings on the southern portion of the site. But yes, the answer to your question about yes, we have a full lighting plan for the site, but there's going to be a couple new poles. We've talked to PP&L bring service up to this building. And there will be lights all the way up along the entire frontage of Stadium Road, all the way up to the stadium, because the sidewalk's going to extend basically all the way up to where you access the stadium. So that will be lit all the way up.
That's critically important on a football night. It's a little chaotic up there.
Yeah, we already have there's an electrical engineer doing all the design. He did I think the lighting plan was in, for the site, and the parking lot and everything was within the land development set, but he's going to be doing the lighting along the whole sidewalk frontage too.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
I have a question for Tony. Tony, if there's 7 waivers here, actually 6, one being a deferral on the improvements along Lime Kiln, do you have any issues with the other 6 waiver requests, more technical in nature? The stormwater, the last couple, 3 to 4 are
Sure.
basically storm.
No, good question. We do not, obviously, once they get into it, I think the last one, 7, we might also look to see if the geotech has any issue with that, but I would assume not. If they can find infiltration, which is standard in the valley, I would think that all these make sense.
And are we looking to act on those waivers tonight and deferral? Or did you
I
want to
think
wait?
that would be up to that would be up to the planning commission, and I guess the applicant, whether he would rather just get a thumbs up or if he actually wants a vote.
With the number of
I would prefer a vote if that's. I'm sorry.
Tony, I'm sorry. This is Diane Kelly. With the number of outstanding items in your letter, would it be your opinion that we, as a planning commission, should wait until we see the plan, if there needs to be any revisions based on the comments you've brought forth?
We could do that. I think some of these I would consider as a planning nature. So in terms of the surrounding area, which is waiver 1, they could either provide a large aerial, which we have accepted for waivers 1 and 2. I think 3 is the frontage improvements, which was well discussed. 4 is stormwater management. I guess assuming that they're going to do an infiltration, and that means they get all their correct testing and everything works. It would be good to know that they can get a waiver for the base and bottom. That's normally how it happens. You don't want a sloped basin. You want a flat bottom basin so it kind of evenly distributes infiltration. So I would say that as long as all the soils testing comes back, that would be something that uh, would be standard. The storm pipes, assuming that that's private pipes, we have no objection to that. 6, which is permeability rate. Again, they would not use a liner if they're doing infiltration. Again, that's really all dependent on their stormwater management system and their testing. And then 7, normally when you do an infiltration test, you get a geotech sign off from the applicant, which would recommend infiltration based upon the underlying geology. So at that time that everything is signed off and the geotech accepts the infiltration testing and report, I think that would be a standard waiver. So a lot of these, although the plan may change, are something that would make sense in my mind.
You've already
I,
had
I
your.
think I think there are a few we could act on. Is there any chance the waiver letter could be, well, I guess we need courtesy of the floor as well. Or if there's any additional planning commission member questions.
David, I did have
Yeah.
a,
Go ahead, Diane.
sorry, it's difficult I had my hand raised, I apologize. The conversation about the waiver for sidewalks on Lime Kiln, after a game, I'm assuming there's an awful lot of kids in the area looking to go to, maybe to the Burger King, or some of them may even already go down toward the bridge. And I'm just wondering, from a safety perspective, if it makes sense to go ahead, since we're doing this entire project, to provide for the sidewalk, whether the sidewalk is there or not. Kids are going to go where they determine to go to hang out. And I'm just curious if it makes sense to do that now.
Yeah, and my comment in terms of the sidewalk is it's always easiest to install it when there's the construction for the actual land development going on. I know Township staff has a lot of trouble in terms of calling in deferrals. Brian Height brought up some good points in terms of it needs to be engineered, and then that area needs to be cleared up for the sidewalk to be installed. And sometimes when deferrals are given, that doesn't always happen. So I'm generally in favor of providing the sidewalk at the time of development, and not doing the deferral. That's just my position. Is there
Well,
anyone? Oh, do you have additional comments?
I have a quick question, and apologies, it's more for clarification. So has geotechnical testing been done yet for infiltration, or is that still need to be completed?
No, all that has been done. There was the full geotechnical package was submitted with the application. We've done pretty extensive testing out there, actually, and then we've done a lot of borings as well for the building itself. So there's a good bit of testing. I think Chris Taylor's review letters in there. We've talked with Chris, and he's comfortable with the design and the infiltration and the testing we've done out there, I think. Again,
Thanks. Yeah, I thought so. I think I just misheard a statement during the recording here. So thanks for
yeah,
clarifying.
his letter is dated December 7th. Again, really, all of his comments are, I would consider fairly minor in nature and all will complies.
Well, I guess if there's no public comment, we can go through the waiver letter one by one and take a vote on, it looks like 6 waivers and 1 deferral. I think if anybody have a problem with that, or do you want to go to see if there's any public comment?
Yeah, is there any public comment? Yeah, I guess the
We
next
have
step,
one
like
coming up.
Mark.
Hold on, we have one coming up to the podium here. You want to introduce yourself?
Sorry, good evening. I'm Tim Carones. I'm the Assistant Superintendent at Parkland. Just in regards to the sidewalk piece to it, as you said, we have that property that's across the street where the old environmental center is. And currently what's there right now is a wastewater treatment facility that helps with our sewage at the buildings. That's something we obviously do not want anyone going down in there to. And we're concerned that if the sidewalk does lead down there, it will lead to people wanting to investigate what's back there. And as you know, there's also that quarry that's back there, which is also a potential hazard. So anything that we can do to try to limit the opportunity for anyone to see a sidewalk and try to venture that way is something that we would greatly appreciate. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Okay. And I guess we can go through them if there's no one else.
Could we bring up the waiver request letter, December 14, I believe, 2022, on the screen so everyone could see it?
I don't believe we have it in the packet.
Yeah, it came later.
Yeah, it was emailed. Okay.
Yeah, we just did not hold on. Sorry, the applicant is providing it.
Yeah.
Can the folks online see that, or is it still showing the plan
You
set?
can see it. Yep. All right. The first one is the first waiver request. Tony, I don't think you had. Do you have any engineering objection?
No, this is going to be a unique situation that aerials are usually starting to be provided due to how easy it is to get an aerial at this point with passive photography. So whether this is a waiver or it's accepted as this is what an aerial meets the ordinance, we have no objection either way.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion to approve.
I'll second. Greg, could you do roll call?
Trevor Dombach.
Aye.
Tim Dugan.
Aye.
Andrew Flagg.
Aye.
Brian Height.
Aye.
Diane Kelly.
Aye.
Mark Luth.
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Waiver request number 2, same thing, Tony. I don't think you had any engineering objective.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Trevor Dombach.
Aye.
Tim Dugan.
Aye.
Andrew Flagg.
Aye.
Brian Height.
Aye.
Diane Kelly.
Aye.
Mark Luth.
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. Number 3, I believe we may have some differing opinions here. This is frontage improvements, primarily sidewalk along Lime Kiln Road.
I'll make a motion to defer the improvements along Lime Kiln as long as they were engineered per Mr. Height's request.
I'll second that.
Point of clarification, I guess. That would be the sidewalk only that you're deferring, if that's correct? In lieu of all the frontage improvements and the widening and curbing, things like that.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
And that would be the sidewalk south of the driveway.
South of the driveway and Lime Kiln Road, correct.
Got it.
Okay, motion and second. Trevor Dombach.
Aye.
Tim Dugan.
Nay.
Andrew Flagg.
Nay.
Brian Height.
Aye.
Diane Kelly.
Nay.
Mark Luth.
Aye.
David Wilson.
Nay.
Motion fails 3-4.
All right. Number 4, requiring base and bottom to be 2% longitudinal slope. Tony, I believe they need to have it flat if
Correct. If they're doing, yes, if they're doing infiltration, it has to be a flat bottom according to all the requirements. So we would have no objection. Assuming infiltration, we have no objection.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Trevor Dombach.
Aye.
Tim Dugan.
Aye.
Andrew Flagg.
Aye.
Brian Height.
Aye.
Diane Kelly.
Aye.
Mark Luth.
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. Number 5, requiring storm pipes to be minimum 15-inch diameter. Would this be limited to storm pipe within the private property?
Yes, correct.
Tony, do you have any engineering objection?
No, as long as it's owned and maintained by the school district, which it is, we have no objection.
And what size are you proposing?
Oh, well, there's some smaller pipes. There's an underground bed of stone underneath that lower parking area that have some smaller pipes coming in and out of it to control the flow. So there's some 8-inch, there's some 12-inch in that design. So.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify it.
Yeah.
In my head. That's what I thought, but wanted to make sure.
I'll make a motion to grant section 312, 3SG.
I'll second.
Trevor Dombach.
Aye.
Tim Dugan.
Aye.
Andrew Flagg.
Aye.
Brian Height.
Aye.
Diane Kelly.
Aye.
Mark Luth.
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. Number 6.
So if they, what this is for is requiring a liner. The standard detention basin needs a liner. But since they're doing infiltration, they they would be doing the opposite. They want the water to infiltrate to the ground. So this is a waiver for that requirement.
So they can't have the liner in because it will prevent the infiltration.
Correct.
So, yep.
Correct.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve.
A second.
Trevor Dombach,
Aye.
Tim Dugan,
Aye.
Andrew Flagg,
Aye.
Brian Height,
Aye.
Diane Kelly,
Aye.
Mark Luth,
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Right. We're on the last one. Requiring groundwater recharge not be permitted in limestone geology. Looks like the geotech investigation was done, and the professional geotech indicated it is possible to do infiltration.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Trevor Dombach,
Aye.
Tim Dugan,
Aye.
Andrew Flagg,
Aye.
Brian Height,
Aye.
Diane Kelly,
Aye.
Mark Luth, David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Any other comments about the project? Otherwise, we'll make some revisions and be back next year. Thank you very much, everyone.
You're welcome. I
Thank
do
you.
have the executed waiver from the time limitation.
I also think we might need a motion to take it under advisement.
Would someone like to make a motion?
So
I'll make
moved.
that motion. I'll second. Diane's first.
All in favor, say aye.
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 No nays.
Motion passes.
Right. Agenda item D, Ridge Farm Phase 1C. Mr. Adams, would you like to do the staff presentation?
In a minute. Let me get there.
Alrighty.
Okay. This is B. Okay, this is an application to develop the property located at PIN number 548746422139, which is the property located west of the Buckman Street, Roosevelt Street intersection and directly north and northwest of Knesset Israel Cemetery. The plan proposes 34 two-unit dwelling units, which is 17 pairs of twins. The continuation of Buckman Street, the construction of Granary Lane again, I guess, Gristmill Lane, an active open space 5, basin number 8, and associated stormwater management facilities on an approximately 6.8 acre portion of the 123 acre tract. The property is zoned R4 medium density residential and TND residential cluster overlay district and is being developed as a TND residential cluster overlay. K. Walbert LLC is the equitable owner and applicant. The Community Development Department recommends the Planning Commission take the plan under advisement to afford the applicant the time necessary to address the reviewing agency's comments. Our recommendation is contingent upon the applicant granting the township a waiver from the time frame in which to act on the plan. The Planning Commission's soft deadline to act on the plan is January 16th, 2023. The Board of Commissioners' hard deadline to act on the plan is currently February 15th, 2023.
Okay, good evening. Jason Engelhardt with Langen Engineering. I'm here with Jim Preston as well. As Greg mentioned, this is a a final plan for Ridge Farm Phase 1C is what we're referring to it as. So this is at the far eastern edge of the project. It's 34 twin units, as was mentioned, on about 7 acres or so. The project is accessed from an extension of Buckman Street with an emergency access that goes up to Daw Street to the north. This is again, it's a final plan, so the plan is consistent with the preliminary plan approval. This is the first time that we've submitted the final plan, so we're in receipt of the comments that were provided. We understand there's some, I would characterize them as cleanup items, a few items that I need to work through with DPW that was recommended in Tony's letter. And we did meet with public safety, and their comments were consistent with what we talked about during preliminary plan. So I think they're essentially addressed. I noticed some comments relative to tree spacing that we will certainly address. And I'm here tonight with Jim to answer any questions you have out of the review about the plan itself. And again, we acknowledge that we've got a little bit of work to do to clean up some of the comments in here. There really isn't anything that essentially they're really will comply items. We just need a little bit of time to work through those.
I don't have any questions outside of Tony's letter. It's pretty straightforward.
And you're okay with the extension of time?
Mr. Preston's filling that out now, the extension of time. So
you guys are old hat at that. So.
Any other planning members? Online?
This is Diane Kelly. I had one question on the access with Buckman Road so the access to Dawes is emergency only, so there'll be restriction there for routine traffic?
Yes. Yeah, that was discussed with public safety, and there'll be collapsible bollards along that roadway. So they'll have access to use it, but otherwise it'll be closed.
So 34 twins are all going to be accessing with Buckman, and what is the width of Buckman Street?
The extension of Buckman will be 28 feet wide.
And will there be parking on both sides?
Not for that short stub extension. There are two, kind of pull over parking spaces for one of the adjoining homeowners there. But outside of that, those two spaces, which will be dedicated to that adjoining homeowner, there'll be no parking.
And is there a proposed bus stop in this plan?
That was a comment that was in the letter, and I did meet with Parkland and go over bus stops with them a number of years ago, and I probably need to connect with them again on the best location here.
School bus stop, you meant that?
Correct. Yes. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. So I will, between now and the next time I come in front of you, I'll talk to them again and verify a location here.
Thank you.
This is Andy Flagg. I have one quick question. Each of the twins are allocated 2 spots right in front of the dwelling. Is that correct?
Yes. They each have a 2-car garage and 2 spots in front of the dwelling.
Okay. And there's no overflow parking for visitors then?
There is parking, on-street parking on the opposite side of each street. So it's only on one side of the street, kind of on the outside of that ring. There's parking on both ends.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions or comments from the Planning Commission?
Yeah, I have a question. So looking at, final outlet of the residents that would be in this area, going out either to Walbert or Huckleberry. Has there been any studies looking into those intersections or the capacity of those roads?
There was a master study for Ridge. I'm not the traffic engineer, but there's a master study for Ridge Farm that included the entire project and the entire, I don't know the exact dollar amount. It was on the order of $12 million worth of road improvements associated with that. So there's fairly limited traffic from these 34 units. Again, I'm going to quote the number just because I had the number, but again, I'm not the traffic engineer, but there were, I think, 25 PM peak hour trips that came out of these 34 twins. So, and then there's two different directions you can go from here. You can either go up to Huckleberry or down to Walbert. It's a fairly small number from here, but that was all factored into the overall extent of the improvements, including all the work that's being done in Walbert and Cedar Crest.
This is Diane Kelly. I have a follow-up to the question about overflow parking. So again, 34 twins, and you've got parking on one side of the street on either side of this. So because it's a restricted area, there's really nowhere for overflow to go if there is a large amount of overflow parking. Has there any consideration been given to provide an extra parking area to prevent, double parking or people not having a place to go?
Well, so in this case, in addition to the 2 garage spaces and the 2 spaces in front of each unit, there's 60 total on-street parking spaces. So, by ordinance, you're required only those two spaces per unit, but we all thought it made sense to have overflow parking. So I think it's a good question, but I think those 60 spaces should be more than adequate for the 34 units.
Thank you.
Only because I know it's now going to be a headache going forward for every new development. Your postal cluster. I printed one of the pages. I don't know if I printed the wrong page. How are you handling your postal? Yeah, I'm assuming obviously there's a homeowners association at some point now.
Yes.
Did you have that on your plan anywhere?
Yeah, I don't know if it's identified on the colored drawing.
I just didn't.
But there's a gang box.
Yeah.
For all those units. And I think there was a comment in the letter too about providing a handicap parking space adjacent
for that.
Actually, 2.
Thank you, Greg. 2 spaces.
Yeah.
So I have to look at adjusting the plan for that.
Okay. Do they cover those too? Are they undercover?
The handicap spaces?
No, just the boxes themselves. I mean, is there like a
Gazebo or something?
Yeah, I don't think we were proposing one here. I certainly have done projects where we did have
I just didn't know what
enclosure,
the standard was technically.
Yeah.
Kind of a new requirement that they don't want to deliver mail.
Yeah. No, there are certainly projects I've worked on where we've enclosed them.
All right.
That wasn't.
I was just curious. Other than that, I don't have any questions.
Hi, this is Laura. I can speak to the gang box of the mailbox if anybody does want the location. It is up at the top by the emergency access is where it's proposed, and it is not covered like a gazebo or anything. It's just a standalone structure with 2 parking spots available in front of it for them to get out.
Thank you. I see it. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
And those parking spaces are signed for postal.
Gotcha.
Yes, they are marked, and it is marked on the plan as such.
And Laura, those parking spaces, I can't really see it on the plan, are not going to in any way restrict the access to Dawes if there were an emergency?
No, they will not.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Is there anyone in the audience or online that has questions or comments?
We have one resident coming up.
My name is Ken Kirshner. I'm the volunteer president of the nonprofit Knesset Israel Cemetery. I was pleased to see in the announcement of today's meeting that the cemetery was particularly mentioned. Jason and I recently appeared on a Zoom call, each of us about so big, so I don't quite recognize you, and I imagine you don't recognize me. But he was kind enough to share some time and some information about a topic that the cemetery has had an interest in since, I guess, 2017, when you started on this long journey. And that has to do with water runoff. I don't mean to get terribly grisly, but since 1927, that cemetery has been there. And were we to have water runoff from a higher area, which 1C is, we face some rather potentially embarrassing situations. I understand that there are federal, state, local rules with regard to water runoff, that the water coming off that 1C area can't be any greater than it is now, and that the township's engineers, as well as Jason's firm and so on, have studied that and working on it. The problem that we face and are concerned about is, since nothing is perfect, in spite of all of the studies and plans and intentions for that retention, detention, infiltrate, I'm not sure the right name, but that basin over there, as well as all the other land, which is now permeable farmland, becomes more or less impermeable concrete and buildings, that the elevation and everybody's good intentions may at some point in the future prove to have been faulty. We have been advised, we the cemetery have been advised by an engineering firm that in order to preclude future controversy amongst what we are sure will be good neighbors, after all, the folks living in 1C will have a very quiet backyard, that we ought to have some study done that indicates what the current water flow is, both surface and subterranean. Subterranean is important for two reasons. One, the burials are 6 feet down, so we're not talking only about surface water. There is a cost to do that, and our hope may be misplaced, but our hope is that the folks working on developing all of Ridge Farms might, just might, want to either cover or subsidize the cost of putting some monitoring pits or wells in now before the building goes on, so that we all have a common understanding of what the current water flow is. I suspect it's not something that the Planning Commission can insist on, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. I don't know if you have any questions.
Well, what I can tell you is that.
Say again?
What I can tell you is they're a fine engineering firm.
I understand.
And not only that, every engineering firm that would have been involved in a project like this would be required to have a drainage area much larger than just these set of twins. And the drainage area goes all the way up the ridge to Huckleberry and comes down to and they study that. And that's what gets mitigated, not just the twin units, but everything. So pre and post construction, all the stuff that they explained to you that goes on, that's their.
It's a little hard for me to hear you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Pre and
So they
post what?
study the pre-construction stormwater and the post-construction stormwater, as I think it was explained to you. And of course, I probably tend to bring it up more often than not, but if you're from the area and you were familiar with Walbert Avenue flooding out from the Roots Farm, which was a farm and tillable, there actually was more water coming off the fields into Walbert Avenue than there is now post-construction of almost 200 plus homes. It's hard to imagine there being less stormwater from a site after construction happens, but in many cases, it's true. I have a feeling that you'll be pleasantly surprised that you don't get blown out with more water, in fact, less water. But technically not enough, no more water that runs off that site today is essentially what could run off after construction and after what they do to mitigate the
I
stormwater.
appreciate your comments, and that's certainly what the requirements are, as I understand them. I mean,
Yes.
I'm an amateur at this.
And there are quite a few eyes looking at their numbers to
No, I
make sure they're
understand.
correct.
I understand your point completely. And again, nothing is perfect. And that's why if we do some monitoring now, should there be an exception to the general rule of less or no more, we are mutually in a position to have that discussion.
Do you get flooded out now? Do you get flooded out now?
No. No.
And it would be kind of a moot study.
Well, now we don't get flooded out. That's true. We also have a cornfield as opposed to the construction that's anticipated. So there's a substantial change in the offing, and that's what we're concerned with. That's why we're concerned
And
about it.
of course, you do have major rights as a landowner that someone else's stormwater can't affect your property. So I mean, what I would say is to monitor it during construction, during and after. And of course, if it would get worse than it is today, then, have someone prove that it's from them. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we can sit here as a planning commission and say that they have to provide any more studies than they're required to do by our township saldo, our township engineer, and anybody
I
else.
understand. It's not a question of requirement.
Yeah.
Just wanted to bring it to the board's attention.
I don't know how the rest of the planning members feel, but
So I appreciate
I do have some comments. My understanding, and Mr. Engelhardt, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure there has been extensive geotechnical investigation on the property. I know it's a requirement to investigate the soils and determine the characteristics of the soil and the depth to any limiting zones, the depth to water table. So a lot of those items were most likely already investigated, and that information is probably available. And per the state, county, and local requirements, an analysis of the current property as it stands right now, a stormwater analysis is required, and that has been done, and an analysis of the future condition of these towns has been done. And if there are any issues with the analyses showing there's going to be stormwater problems, the developer would have to address them. And you can see there's an infiltration basin that captures the water and soaks the water into the ground. And they're required by state code, local and county code to do that. So these stormwater measures are implemented. They'll have to meet all the requirements, and Jason can speak to the permits and whatnot that they've obtained or are in process of obtaining, but they're very stringent requirements. The local county conservation district and our township engineer is very strict because we don't want you to have flooding problems. So I'm confident the design will not cause flooding problems.
Is it possible, Tony, if we could ask our township engineer to just review for Mr. Kirschner, what the township's role is once this development begins to move forward?
Sure, I can do that. So we took a look, as well as LVPC, who does the regional stormwater management reviews, at the overall study area to the adjacent properties. We checked to make sure that there is no additional runoff. As been mentioned, it's been mentioned, in this meeting, that there's no additional runoff. Now, we know that nothing is perfect, but not only do we check what happens in a normal day with a normal storm the whole way through the 100-year storm, which is, rare. We also have emergency spillways and overflows that we check also. Now, I would say most, if not 90%, I don't know the exact number, I apologize, but most of this runoff gets collected in pipes and piped to the stormwater system in Buckman Street. So everything that was sheet flow from the ridge down towards your property is now put in pipes. So although not perfect, as you collect all that water and pipe it down through storm sewer piping, it should avoid your property. We monitor that, we review that. Our letter contains a page or two of comments. So although the plans have been submitted, we've noted that they're not ready yet until they address all 20 comments or so that we have in our letter. So we'll continue to make sure and not record the plans and not allow them to build until those are done. Additionally, during construction, the County Conservation District monitors what runoff comes off the site during construction. So when the trucks are out there before the pipes are in the ground, you have the Conservation District doing site visits. So I agree, everything is not perfect, but with multiple sets of eyes between our eyes, the Conservation District, the planning commissions, we feel comfortable that we can protect the neighbors.
I appreciate you, your comments. Essentially what Jason said at the meeting and what I've just heard here tonight. The key to our discussions have been your words, not perfect, and nobody expects, everybody hopes for perfect, works towards perfect, but may not achieve it. And our concern is, how do we know what perfect is or isn't? And as I say, it's been suggested to us that we learn not what the infiltration or water runoff is on the Ridge Farm area, but what the current runoff is to the cemetery, and whether, even with all of the safeguards that you've just detailed, which I appreciate, it changes in the future. So we know how to do that. It's just a question of cost. And that was the purpose of making my comment, not to suggest that nobody is watching the store. I'm sure all of you folks are paying a great deal of attention and have been over the past 5 years that this project has been moving through. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Or Mr. Engelhardt, Jason, do you have any other comments?
No, I don't think so. I would only just mention to the planning commission, as was mentioned, that We offered and had a Zoom meeting specifically to talk about the cemetery and their concerns with their engineer. I think it was Keystone. And I have provided them plans and information. They've had that opportunity to review that, and will continue to do so.
Is there anyone else online or in the audience? All right. I think we need to make a motion to take the project under advisement.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No.
Somebody's got to go out there. It's locked away.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, we should continue to take roll call votes.
Okay.
Since we started the meeting out that way, we should continue to do that.
Greg, could you do a roll call?
Absolutely. I just want to say that I did get a waiver from the time limitation from the applicant. So with that, we have a motion and second to take under advisement. Trevor Dombach.
Aye.
Tim Dugan.
Aye.
Andrew Flagg.
Aye.
Brian Height.
Aye.
Diane Kelly.
Aye.
Mark Luth.
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Hey, Mom.
We're on agenda item number 6, zoning amendments. Zoning ordinance service pack 2C.
Allow me to move up to the podium. If we want to wait a minute, Chris is making a copy for the applicant. So if we can take a very short break while he does that and comes back.
All right.
Okay, you ready? Okay, Chris is back. So we're going to start with zoning ordinance service pack 2C. As I had mentioned in my memo, we are up into the last section, category 3. We did make a few changes to items in category 2, so I will review them quickly to let you know what we had done with your comments. Chris, you can find that page. From this point forward, we're working in the items that are after page 188 in your packet. So what I will do is use the page numbers at the bottom of the page from this point forward. So.
And I'm sorry, it's taking a minute to load. Am I going to the comment page?
You got that one, just scroll down one page. There you go, that one. Okay, so I believe this was. That's okay. Oh. Gotcha. All right, so in your packet, this is amending section 350.42B4 screening requirements starting on page 45. The change that was suggested is on page 48. It's the highlighted berm. I believe the original wording was at least 3 feet in height above original grade. You suggested that become proposed grade. So that's the change that was made there. Then the next item that saw a change was on page 60, which is the amendment to section 350-46A, temporary uses by right. We got into a discussion about clinics, and if I recall, it was a fairly lengthy discussion. The suggestion was that the verbiage should be clinics coordinated by licensed public health professionals for administering mass vaccinations, blood drives, and other similar clinics planned by licensed public health professionals to meet a regional need. That was the suggestion. That's what we did. And then the last one in this section that had a change was on page 74. This was not brought up by the Planning Commission. This was brought up by a staff member. And this is in the amendment to section 350-48P2, personal service business. We're looking at licensing. A lot of personal services businesses are licensed in the state of Pennsylvania. Obviously, hair salons, massage therapists, and similar sort of thing are licensed. So we're adding a section under additional regulations that will require them to present a license, a compliant license, and be able to present that at any time with the zoning officer's request, just to ensure that people who are doing service business are indeed licensed as they should be. So that was added in there. Does anybody have any questions regarding that one?
That's a good catch by that staff member.
It was. Hearing no other questions, let us move on to uncharted waters. We're now moving into the last category, which is the resident business inspired issues. We'd already dealt with sections 1, 2, and 3. We had moved old section 4 to the rear. That was impervious surface. So we're going to continue with that, and new section 4 on page 88. This is amending section 350-45D, reduced front yard setbacks to reinforce the inclusion of parking setbacks. Basically, right now, there's a little confusion as to what's involved in that section. And this is basically something that we've done in the commercial zoning districts to encourage right-of-way improvements and the like. You get decreased setbacks for building. It was always taken as building. It never says building and parking in here. So we want to make sure and clear that this is for both building and parking setbacks. So that's basically the clarity we're adding. We're adding building setbacks and parking setbacks as specified in section 350-4802E4, which is the parking setback reference. We're adding 25 feet in the middle because some of the parking setbacks are 25 feet. The building setbacks are generally 50. And then the last sentence basically puts the hard stop at, in no case shall the parking setback be reduced to 5 feet from the ultimate right-of-way. So we do want to maintain that setback as a minimum. So even if they give us all of the reductions possible, you still will stop the parking at the 5-foot step from ultimate right-of-way line. Additionally, we thought, one of the staff members thought an additional option would be adding a brick or masonry knee wall between 18 and 30 inches in height, between 8 and 12 inches in depth, constructed between the parking area and fronting street to be located along the edge of the parking area. That's a decorative thing you see in a lot of places nowadays. And if it's at 30 inches in height, it can be used as a substitute for the buffer plantings to screen headlights. So this is all an option. Developers can take this or not take this at their whim. But these are the changes to this section that we are proposing. Are there any?
The only comment I would have about masonry, it should be some sort of decorative rather than just a poured concrete 30-inch curb, for lack of a better term.
Brick faced or stone faced?
Or some sort of decorative that, I could see
Decorative
somebody.
treatment.
Yeah, I could.
Yep. Yeah, not a Jersey barrier. Okay.
Greg, this is Diane Kelly. I just have a question. So a 30-inch knee wall may be substituted for a buffer, you're saying for headlights, but
Correct.
that really doesn't, height-wise, doesn't always, depending on the vehicle, necessarily be helpful to block, automobile lights. Is that something that the township would have the ability to make the decision of whether or not plantings were required or the knee wall?
I can maybe help answer that, Diane.
Yeah.
It's Laura. So don't confuse this with the buffering requirements that are already required. So in addition to that screening and buffering that's already required, this is optional. This is a section in the ordinance that they can get reduced front yard setbacks providing they meet certain requirements. I don't know if I should do this, but I'm gonna use Dollar General as an example. So between the street and their building, it would have been nice to have something of this nature. Would they have chosen to use something like this? We would have been able to suggest maybe this type of a wall thing. And right
Yeah, and
now,
just to point out, Laura, the last sentence is, it may substitute for buffer planting. So I'm in agreement with you that if they had chosen this, it would be nice to have had. But I think to address Diane's comment or question, if this is put in place as is, it is an option that's permitted by zoning. The buffer planting strips to buffer parking lots from the street require plantings of 30 inches in height. So that's why the 30 inches was chosen. It's in theory to equal the same size as plantings of that nature.
Thank you, Greg.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'm taking that as that's fine. I will add in the decorative treatment to the wall.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is item 5 on page 89. This is amend section 350-48A5, agricultural horticultural nursery, excluding raising and keeping of farm animals, and 350-48A6, agricultural horticultural nursery and raising, including raising and keeping of farm animals, to define the uses, to add additional regulations regarding setbacks, and amending section 350-24C to remove area and frontage requirements for agricultural uses. Basically, our ordinance currently doesn't define agriculture in those two sections. You would have to fall back to the most recent version of the, what's the dictionary? Is it Webster? Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary. It's got to be collegiate. Yes. So this proposes to define these things, but also to recognize that there have been differing trends in agriculture lately. I think these were primarily drafted for, as we know, large farms. But we've had some interest in having smaller, more niche, or artisanal farms come out. Providing cheese, specialized goat cheese or something along those lines, which requires less than the 5 acres required by agriculture. So we want to try to address that issue as well. We really want to encourage agriculture in all its forms here in the township. So in order to do that, we will obviously change the definitions. which are shown halfway down page 89 in blue. When you move to the top of 90, we will add additional regulations to to the first section. This is including raising and keeping of farm animals. So you notice these actually mention farm animals. So it gives setbacks to any buildings where the care and maintenance of farm animals occur, 50 feet from property lines and 100 feet from a dwelling unit on adjoining lot. And then doubling that for any building or structure or area used for the storage of animal waste. So our smaller farms that aren't CAFOs, at least if there's waste involved, we have to move them a little further back into the property. For the next section, which is 348 F2E, farm buildings, outbuildings. Currently, it's the only additional regulation is you can't slaughter poultry or livestock there for commercial purposes. So we want to add the other two, which kind of mirrors the first two sections, the setbacks for the buildings for storing the animals and the doubling of the setbacks for the animal waste storage. Then moving down, we want to change the zoning district schedules, which is 350-24C, to adopt the new section. Well, it doesn't change the definition, but what it does change is we want to remove the 5-acre lot size minimum and the 300-foot minimum frontage. And we hope that that will encourage more agriculture on less than 5 acres. And then finally, on page 92, we want to add a section in 350-42, I believe that's residential. Vegetation, landscaping, gardening, and this is where we come into say that all vegetation on private property not grown, harvested, or used for commercial purposes, including landscaping, private gardening, etc., unless otherwise regulated within this ordinance, shall be permitted by right with no setbacks. So you can have a lawn with no setbacks. You can have a little garden there, some landscaping, which is pretty much how we currently do it, but it's not stated such in the ordinance. So with agriculture, we wanted to make sure that people know that if you're growing tomatoes in your backyard, that is not considered agriculture. That is your right to grow a garden on your residential property with no setbacks. So basically, that's why that was included. And of course, the last thing is because there already is a section V, we have to renumber that to section W. So
Can I grow tomatoes in my front yard?
Yes.
Because I
Yes,
currently do it now.
You can.
Because that's where the sun is.
Yeah.
In my front yard. In
Yeah.
the back.
And if you consider that landscaping, sure. So that is basically everything that we're proposing in that section. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none. Moving on. Page 93. This is item 6. Amend section 350-48B6, boarding house, to clarify the use. Now, I know boarding house is an old and time-honored tradition here in this township. The definition and the use has been in the zoning ordinance for a very, very long time. Of course, I don't know if anybody actually operates a boarding house as it was back in the 50s or 60s. Currently, however, it does fit the definition of an Airbnb. So in order to basically clarify that, we're adding additional verbiage within the definition to state that this is a commercial use operated by a permanent resident on the property, and maximum of 10 guests, and to clarify that up to 10 guests is in commercial districts where it is permitted. The residential use in residential districts are only permitted 2. This was in the definition, but not clear. So this is all, we're not changing anything here. We are simply adding verbiage to clarify the already existing sections. So that's basically all this is. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, moving on. Next up on page 94, amend section 350-48D8D, dwelling unit townhouse. minimum off-street parking calculations. At some point, we basically said that new townhouses should have overflow parking. We've all seen in certain townhouse developments where there is not much parking available on street. So I think this came in 2014, maybe a little later, where we wanted to require off-street parking overflow. Currently, the lot as required, no fewer than 6, no more than 12 parking spaces. It's supposed to fit in with the neighborhood. What we found out is that when Blue Barn Meadows went to put in an overflow parking lot, the lot depth allowed more than 12 spaces in what was previously a townhouse lot, but had been converted over to a parking area. So we thought that since there would already be a parking area there, the lot depth would be able to allow up to 18 spaces. So basically, we're proposing changing that maximum from 12 to 18, just so that the lot can be utilized more fully if need be. And that is a maximum. The developer doesn't have to do 18. They can do down to 8 if they want. But this allows them to use the lot to its fullest. So any questions with that? Hearing none, moving on. Page 95, amend section 35048M7, motor vehicle repair facility to correct, that should be an inconsistency with section 35048M9, motor vehicle service facility. Some of you may recall there was an amendment here to the motor vehicle service facility or gas station to allow additional service stations within, was it 1,500 feet? Well, the same regulations are also in motor vehicle repair facility. So in order for them to be consistent with gas stations, we felt that the same language in gas stations should be exactly the same language that's in motor repair facilities as well. So that's all we're doing is copying word for word from what's already required in gas stations and moving them over to motor repair facilities. Any questions?
I know when we went through the fueling, we identified, or the identified where they had existing ones, or do we have any existing like this currently?
Yes.
That will legalize?
Yes, push and pull is one of them. And I believe we're going to get an application at some time in the near future for another one on Church Road.
Ah, okay.
Yep. So push and pull is one right now. Laura, do you think there's another motor vehicle repair facility out in the township?
We just did PATA.
Yep.
You're not talking service, you're talking repair. You just said repair. So repair
Correct.
would be
Repair.
PATA.
Yep. So, any questions regarding this? Hearing none. Moving on. Page 98. Amend section 35048N3 nursing home to add off-street parking requirements. For some reason, they don't have any. We think this should be corrected. So what we're doing is putting in 1 space for every 3 beds plus 1 for each employee in the largest shift as a parking requirement. We know that most nursing homes generally don't, the residents don't get a lot of vehicles that they own. And I hate to say it, but we don't visit people in nursing homes nearly as much as we should. So here we are. So this is what we're proposing. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, moving on. Page 99, amend sections 35048R3 recreation facility and 35048R4 recreation fields to add the uses to industrial zone. Our industrial zone has a fair number of uses in it, and we were surprised to see that you can't have a recreation field there. So we thought, well, maybe we should. So in essence, that's all this is adding those in. Minimum sizes to match everything else there, minimum frontage, all the other stuff. It just becomes 2 additional permitted uses. Questions, comments?
So what's the definition of a recreation facility? Is that like a gym slash?
Gym could be a bowling alley. Could be something along those lines. I don't have the zoning. Zoning was so. Not so much of that. That's.
We have driving range.
Yeah, we have a driving range.
Somewhere.
Yeah. If you want to know, I can read it to you if you like.
No, I was just.
It's something along those lines.
I can look it up myself later.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, moving on. To 11, amend section 350-48S7 service business to modify the off-street parking requirements. This would probably go hand in hand with the much earlier one we did. But we noticed, I can say where this came from, it's definitely Long's Water. That is a service business, which is primarily an off-site staff. Most of their staff gets into their vehicles and goes and does their work off-site. So you generally don't see a lot of people coming in. There's not a lot of sales area there. A lot of the space is dedicated to the vehicles and the stock. So instead of having one space for every 200 square feet of total floor area, we believe that's probably overkill in the parking. So we're going to change that to one space for every 200 square feet of office area and customer accessible area, which will generally knock it down a fair bit. Plus one space for every mobile / which means non-office employee on the largest shift. And if you look at Long's Water, basically how they did it was they had some parking spaces outside, but the employees would come in, take the vehicle out of the bay, move their personal vehicle in, take their vehicle out and go about, and then swap it at the end of the day. So the bays served as both parking for the company vehicles and the employee vehicles. So that's perfectly fine. So this will hopefully cut down on the amount of unused parking spaces that are in service businesses. So any comments or questions?
Greg, I just have a question. You referenced Long's Water as an example.
Yep.
Can you give us an example of some other service businesses that this might apply to?
Sure. I mean, you're basically looking at like landscapers, small contractors, plumbers, HVAC, electricians, quite frankly, anybody else who I've heard of mobile dog groomers, stuff like that. I know down on Crackersport Road, right on the north side of Crackersport Road, right east of the turnpike, there's a little 2-unit building that went in there. And that's basically being used by service businesses. They've got a big bay, a small office, and that's about it. And, it's perfect for a landscaper. He can store his equipment in there, work on it if need be. He's got a small office for a secretary to maintain files. If anybody wants to come visit him, they do have a small office space. But for the most part, they don't get a lot of people in, and their workforce is out and about during the day. So that's kind of what this is tailored to.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Moving on. Item page 102, amend section 350-48S10 signs to clarify the regulations on pylon signs. For a long time now, the regulations have been not perfectly clear. They basically state that coordinated developments shall be permitted one pylon sign, providing the following restrictions are met. A long time ago, a zoning officer, I forget which one of the many we've had, made the interpretation that that applies to one stretch of public road frontage. So if, like Crest Plaza has 3 public road frontage. It's got Cedar Crest Boulevard, Walbert Avenue, and Winchester Road. So he made the interpretation that this was meant for each road frontage. So this is what we've been doing now ever since. I mean, if you go down to Tillman Square, they've got a big old pylon sign on Broadway, and then they've got one down on Citronia Road. And this is basically how it's been. So all this is proposing to do is to memorialize what we've been doing by policy for the past 20 years. So really, it's just basically stating for each separate road frontage onto which a coordinated maintains a driveway, you get a pylon sign. Any questions? Hearing none, moving on. Item 13, amend section 350-48S18, stormwater management facilities. This is, right now, stormwater management facilities are either primary uses or accessory uses permitted on lots in every zoning district because, I hate to say it, most places require stormwater management facilities. But we had a developer come in and he wanted to put a big basin spanning 2 residential house lots. And that immediately sent up some red flags because if you have one basin with one owner owning half and the other owner owning the other half, we could see a ton of problems resulting from that. So basically there was nothing we could do at the time. Fortunately, that development did not move forward, but we thought in order to be a little proactive, let's prevent that sort of thing from happening again. So what we're doing is defining stormwater management facilities. It's kind of broad, but that's what it is. We're adding residential to it so it can be placed on a residential lot as BMPs now currently are. And then we're adding additional regulations that basically spell out the concept that I laid out. So you've got a facility in a parcel with a primary use may be considered accessory. A facility in a parcel without a primary use on it would be considered the primary use. A discrete facility such as but not limited to rain garden or infiltration pit, infiltration bed, detention or retention basin, swale or geographic area of amended soil, or any system on a single property shall be located only on a single property, which basically means if you can make it discrete and keep it on one property, that's what we're looking for. However, we recognize that sometimes you have multiple properties like the hills at Winchester, where they have a huge irrigation system there. In those cases, we basically state that any stormwater transmission system or discrete facilities or spray irrigation systems with spray heads that serve multiple properties can exist on multiple properties so long as the system is owned and maintained by a single entity and appropriate easements are in place to allow said entity to maintain every portion of the system that is not on property owned or controlled by the entity. So this allows an HOA to maintain all that piping, all the big basins, stuff like that, that may trip over into multiple private properties. And then, of course, changing the zoning district schedule to match that. So that's our proposal. Any questions or comments?
Could you expand on, in the last sentence there you have on property that is not on property owned or controlled by said entity?
Right.
Is there a difference in your interpretation between them having an easement and having control? Or are those conflicting statements there?
Basically, it's intended that sometimes HOAs will own property. Obviously, a lot of them will own a basin. They'll also own a clubhouse, or in the case of some of the more recent ones, streets. So if they own that and the facility is on that, that's fine. If, however, the facility goes to other private property like the residences, then easements are required. Did that answer the question? Okay.
Greg, maybe you could use Regency as an example where the HOA owns the clubhouse and certain basins. However, each home also has the facilities that run into the irrigation system. So I think, does that answer the question that was being asked of how it goes from one entity where it's not owned, but it's controlled by the entity?
Yes, I'm good on it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, just to expand on that, some of the lots have like rain gardens that are discrete and owned by the property owner. They're not controlled by the HOA. On the other hand, if there's a swale in the rear yard that continues along a line of houses, that should be in an easement, and that easement should be held by the HOA so that they can maintain it and ensure it actually is kept open. So that's what that is intended to do. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, moving on. And then the last one before the big one. This is amending section 35046B1 temporary uses, requiring zoning hearing board approval to amend the amount of time permitted for a temporary use with zoning hearing board approval. So basically, right now, the zoning hearing board can grant a temporary use. Unfortunately, it can only be up to 7 days. Now, sometimes 7 days is enough for a temporary use. However, we have seen some temporary uses. For example, temporary sales of Mother's Day flowers. Fireworks is another thing. The other thing we've seen is sometimes churches will have some sort of temporary use in their facility for like a summer or something like that, which anything longer than 7 days, the zoning hearing board can't grant without a variance. And then you have to prove the hardship, and it's kind of tough to prove a hardship on why you want something to last 8 days rather than 7. So basically, we felt that increasing that to 180 consecutive days gives the zoning hearing board a lot more flexibility, and that's at their whim. If they decide that a week is all they want to grant, they can grant that. But if they feel that up to 6 months is fine, they can grant that as well. We kind of took our lead from the building code, where a temporary use is 180 days. So that's what we're proposing there. A little more flexibility by the zoning hearing board. Any questions or comments?
Have we run into this a lot?
Not a lot, but every once in a while, it's
enough to be annoying.
Just enough to be annoying, and usually the ones impacted are the nonprofits.
Oh.
The ones you kind of want to help.
Right. Okay.
So here we are. We've reached the end of that. We are now up against our favorite topic, impervious lot coverage. Now I'm looking at my watch and I'm seeing 9:51 p.m. So I'm going to leave this up to the president, the chairman of the board, do you wish to continue and discuss impervious surface, or do we want to kind of discuss what we've talked about so far and maybe look at moving one of the sections on, or maybe two if you so desire?
Yeah, I think we can definitely, seems like we can move some stuff along first. I know we didn't even need to go over the typos because we've gone over that already and whatnot. But yeah, this is a group. Does anyone else have any thoughts? At least move some of it along, I would think.
I'd agree with that. Move some along. Sorry to interrupt, but that's my position. I agree with you, Dave.
Okay. All right.
Well, Greg, excuse me, Mr. Wilson, how long do you think this discussion was going to take for the last, like, we have literally 3 pages in the packet.
If you want to set a 10-minute time frame on it, and at the end of 10 minutes, the buzzer goes off and we stop, if we've hashed it out by then, I'm fine with that.
I mean, it's up to the pleasure of the rest. I'm one of 7, but
yeah,
I would like to see this not on an agenda in the future. To be frank.
Right, yeah, let's take 10 minutes. See if we could get through this last section.
And we have 4 members at home, or virtual, so.
Oh, true. Yes. Yeah. Their commute time is significantly reduced.
I'm going to rewrite some.
And we have, I think, talked about this over 2 meetings so far. So basically, all I did with this, starting on page 106, I tweaked my memo, removed all of the prior options because I think we were getting a little confusion with all of the prior options. So I'm just offering up option 6, which was what we were mainly talking about last time. On page 108, I did a table that the left half of it is basically what's proposed, and then the right half of it in kind of a reddish font shows you what the practical impact is, both in square footage and percentage of lot. So you can see right there in red and white what this actually proposes. And I know it's probably difficult to visualize what 11,000 square feet looks like
But
on the ground.
so you're going from, if you have a 43.5, you have a 1 acre lot right now, we're allowed 50%. Under your scenario, it goes to 22%?
Yeah.
So we're cutting it down by 50% and more on 50% coverage.
Yes. Well, yes.
I won't be voting for any of that. You guys can discuss it, but
yeah,
I go back to my comment from the last meeting.
Yeah. And we talked about why, and we talked about the remedy of special exception, which is something, yes, we are cutting down the impervious surface allowed on larger lots.
Yeah, I don't agree
There's
with
no
it.
way of getting around that. That's what we're proposing. We discussed the reasoning behind that. Something that we're not moving forward with now under this change, but we will be looking at in the future. So basically, this is what it is. And as I mentioned, if somebody wants to exceed that, that is a permitted use. It's a special exception requirement. They do have to go to the zoning hearing board for that.
How much does that cost a normal person?
For a residential?
Yeah.
Laura, is that a 250?
I believe it's yeah, residential, yes, 250.
250. I would imagine if you're proposing a house that exceeds,
No,
well,
but if you have
impervious surface.
if you have a shed you want to put in, or you want to put,
yeah,
anything, then you got to pay $250 and you got to ask somebody permission. I just don't agree with going down, but you guys can talk about it.
Yeah. So that's basically it.
And what was the standard, or what's the existing standard now?
If you go to
50%?
page 106,
Oh, gotcha.
it's the one in green.
Well,
This is Andy. I'd like to ask a question. Is this designed to assist the township with large project developments, or individual homeowners building on a half an acre to 4 acre pieces of property?
Well, it's primarily exists. I mean, it will eventually help the township out. There may be some benefit to the homeowner building on a half acre to a 4 acre lot. I mean, basically, once you trip the 1 acre, you're currently only allowed 25%. So you're only losing a small percentage of your impervious surface at 43,561 square feet. But this is really meant to help, especially in the future, homeowners on more conventional lots where we're talking half acre, quarter acre, basically 90% of what you see out there.
My particular lot's 15,000 square feet where I live. So right now I'm allowed up to 65% of my lot. And we're saying that we're going to make that 34%. So I'm losing almost 50. I might actually go over my allotment now, based on you changing that, in which case now I'm pre-existing non-conforming.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. And then I got to pay $250, and I have to hope that 5 people somewhere agree with my theory on why I want to put something else on my lot.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it's a permitted use. You know, basically they would look at your lot and say, all right, is there an issue with this that might adversely impact the neighbors and therefore they might put additional conditions on? But they really can't deny you. It is a permitted use.
Well, by putting certain conditions, in some cases, could automatically deny what I want to do because I can't really do what I want to do because they're telling me I have to do something else. So, I mean, again, I'll go back to it. I don't. Well,
I just don't see how this benefits people that are on a decent sized piece of property who multiple years into ownership decide that they want to do some kind of improvement and they can't. And I know that they have a workaround, but it becomes expensive and litigious. And I don't know if that's keeping with what we want to achieve as a community for individual homeowners.
and a lot of times you got to go out and hire an engineer, which isn't cheap. I mean, I got to survey your lot. I got to do an impervious calculation. So now I'm going to sit there and charge you $2,500 to come down and survey your 15,000 square foot lot to determine what your current impervious calculations are. And then, add on whatever you want to add on. And then we have to go and pay $250, wait a month or more to go to a hearing to decide whether or not they're going to put more restrictions on what you want to do with your lot. I mean, I can't just draw it up on a piece of scratch paper and they're going to say, well, you got to go out and hire an engineer. I know what it costs to survey a 2-acre lot and figure out what the impervious area is going to be. And I can tell you it's going to be $2,500 or more.
Greg, can I ask a question, just a more broad overall?
Sure.
With this section, with this chart, what issue in the township are you hoping to solve by making this proposed change? Just from a big overview.
Right. Well, basically speaking, the current chart on page 106 has a flaw in it. And that's basically that at 5,000 square feet, you're permitted 5,000 square feet of impervious. If you have 5,001 square feet, you're permitted 4,000 feet of impervious. And this is the same for every jump. It creates not a smooth line, but a jagged line. And so, you're basically penalized for having one more square foot than what your neighbor has. So that was the impetus toward this. So it was to smooth that out so we wouldn't have any reductions when you go over a certain amount. And basically speaking,
no, go ahead.
Basically speaking, it's just a case of where do we draw the line? I mean, I can bring back the other options to closely mirror what this chart does.
But I guess I would ask the question, this chart on page 106 has been what we have used in the township for multiple years.
About 6, yes.
Okay.
8. Yeah.
8. So in these 8 years, you have X amount of examples of how this has been difficult for homeowners?
Not so much, because believe it or not, most people are under the impervious lot coverage.
Why don't you just correct the 5,000 square foot? And then nothing really should be 100% covered anyway. But so take that to 80%.
Sure, we can do that.
I just,
I'm trying to understand what problem we're trying to solve. If, to Mark's point, if it is the up to 5,000, is there
that was the main problem to be solved. But then, more recently, we've been kicking around some other problems, and this is what we discussed in November and October, I think, where this feeds into our issues with stormwater management in new subdivisions, the creation of BMPs on lots that are now maintained by private individuals as opposed to community stormwater management facilities, which then feeds into township and MS4 requirements, which means if a sizable proportion of the lots up at, say, the hills at Winchester and Regency have on-lot BMPs, then we must, as a township, track every one of them, as opposed to having basically an HOA maintain a larger community stormwater management facility, which means we're only tracking one item as opposed to up to 100. So this by itself only addresses the jagged shift in impervious surface allowed to a residential homeowner. But it's also designed to, moving forward, we can fix other problems using it. So that's why it's basically set up the way it's set up. Once again, if you want, I can simply bring back option 2, which closely mirrors what the net yield of the chart on 106 is.
I have a statement to make.
Mm-hmm.
One, I think we can do all the rest and parse this out separately.
Yep.
And the other one is a question, and I apologize if I ask this. It's my typical question. What are our surrounding municipalities doing in this regard?
Don't know.
I think maybe we should take this section, move the rest ahead,
Mm-hmm.
and then do a little bit more research, not to give it to staff more work, but I think it would be good to see collaborative,
Mm-hmm.
reach out to our neighbors and see what if everybody's having the same issue with these new BMPs and everything coming on, I think it would be really good to see how they're addressing it, if they're addressing it at all, or if they've figured out a solution that we could steal.
Right. And I suspect it's actually the former. I do know a couple of the other municipalities have a blanket. It's 1% for the residential lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they have anything that ties into that addresses the stormwater management issues that we're running into. But I'll look into it.
Everybody's going to run into the same issue.
But to penalize the people that don't have a BMP on their lot because we have to worry about the people with BMPs on their lot doesn't make sense either. So everybody who lives in Deerfield and Winchester and down in Greenwall, wherever else, now we, with one flip of the switch, we make them all pre-existing non-conforming, anybody who might be over that number now.
Yeah. But the thing is that I don't believe the number of people who are over or would be over if they want to build a shed or a pool is anything.
And I think we should notify everybody who would be over, because I don't think it's the right thing to do. And that's not going to happen either. So, I don't know why you can't keep the same one you've been using for 8 years and change the 5,000 square foot.
Well, we can do that. And that's what I said. This is all a case of, do you want to mirror this? Do you want to add more impervious surface allowable? Do you want less impervious surface allowable? This is where I stand.
I think we need to look into this a little more. I think we've gone over the 10 minutes for this topic. So I don't think we're going to come to a conclusion tonight for this one.
I do think more research is done. But I think the rest is ready to go.
Okay.
Just my opinion out of 7.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the typos, broken references, and obvious inconsistencies. Does anyone have any? I think we can move that forward. Does anyone want to make a motion on moving that?
I'll make that motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motions.
All right. So I'll second. Do you want to do a roll call?
Well, everything except that last section, the amended section.
Okay, so you're saying moving everything
else,
but the last section.
But yeah. 293 red, 106 black.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Roll call vote, Trevor Dombach.
Aye.
Tim Dugan.
Aye.
Andrew Flagg.
Aye.
Brian Height.
Aye.
Diane Kelly.
Aye.
There we go. Mark Luth.
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Very great.
All right. Agenda item number 7, election of officers.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open the floor to nominations for each of the positions separately. If anyone is nominated and doesn't wish to be nominated, please speak up. So at this point, I'll open the floor to nominations for the office of chairman.
I nominate David Wilson.
I'll second.
Are there any further nominations at this time? Okay, then we'll close the nominations and you can do a roll call vote.
Trevor Dombach.
Aye.
Tim Dugan.
Aye.
Andrew Flagg.
Aye.
Brian Height.
Aye.
Diane Kelly.
Aye.
Mark Luth.
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We have a new chairman.
Okay, I will now open the floor to nominations for the office of vice chairman.
Nominate Brian Height.
I'll second.
Any further nominations? Okay, we'll close the nominations and call for a roll call vote.
Trevor Dombach.
Aye.
Tim Dugan.
Aye.
Andrew Flagg.
Aye.
Brian Height.
Aye.
Diane Kelly.
Aye.
Mark Luth.
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, we'll now open the floor to nominations for the office of secretary.
I nominate Tim Dugan.
I'll second.
Are there any further nominations? Okay, we'll close the nominations and call for a roll call vote.
Trevor Dombach.
Aye.
Tim Dugan.
Aye.
Andrew Flagg.
Aye.
Brian Height.
Aye.
Diane Kelly.
Aye.
Mark Luth.
Aye.
David Wilson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, I'll return the meeting to the chairman.
All right. We're on agenda item number 8, transportation infrastructure update. Tony.
Thank you again. I keep on getting the late end of the meeting, but I'll keep it short. Nothing really to report. Obviously, we're into the winter weather. PennDOT made a point to put up a lot of these flashing message boards in the last year or two. Keep up to date with them. Those are definitely important as winter weather rolls in. They're trying to keep everyone informed and keep the roads clear. You know, get off the roads and let the plows do their work. That's all I can say.
All right. Thank you, Tony. Agenda item number 9, courtesy of the floor. Is there
I have-
anyone? Oh,
I have 3 items.
Three.
3, very quick. First off, there are no submissions for January. We will still likely have a meeting because comp plan. So,
But we won't be here till 10:30.
no,
Maybe.
God, no.
Maybe.
Yes. Item 2. I had previously distributed both by email and by paper the calendar showing the draft meeting dates for 2023. Does anybody have any issues with the meeting dates as shown? They're all the 3rd Thursday of the month. I do know that sometimes there's a religious holiday that might conflict, but
Valentine's Day is noted twice.
Yeah, in the on the right.
Oh,
And
that's not my fault. That's what I pulled off the internet.
My wife had me.
Yeah. Well, it's the same day, it's just twice.
2 times.
Hearing no issues, those will be next year's meeting dates. And last but not least, I was kind of hoping to have Diane and David in the building to sign a set of plans, but that did not happen. Would either of you be available tomorrow, perhaps, to come in and sign the Luther Crest plans?
Yeah, I could come in tomorrow.
Okay.
What time does the office open at?
Opens at 8.
Okay.
Greg, I'll be in tomorrow as well.
All right, thank you. That will make a number of people very happy. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All in
Take a roll
favor,
call
say
vote.
aye.
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 Thank you
Those
all.
of you
Thank you.
driving, be careful.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a Merry Christmas.
Happy
Good
holidays.
night. Happy holidays,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Merry Christmas.